morning. Really a pleasure to be here. I'll focus on two things about fog computing. That is, we think that fog computing will bring not only just technology breakthroughs and fill many of the critical technology gaps, but also it will bring very disruptive business model changes. In terms of technology, I'm not going to go through all the possibilities of the gaps that the fog is filling, but several things that I want to stress. One of them is it really empowers cloud computing. And it's not something that that's sort of counter to the fog computing, cloud computing, or compete with cloud computing. We stressed again the fog computing actually enables this continuum of service, continuum of computing capabilities, all the way from the cloud to the things, and that's very important. In the long run, you're going to see an integrated end-to-end service platform that will allow you to develop a service for the cloud, and then the same service without change can be moved down that continuum anywhere it makes sense. And the same type, the same platform and same technology set will be able to be used to support that. And you don't need to develop yet another separate set of platforms for many of the fog services, for example. Many of them can be united, can be together. So that has profound implications. And to start with, right now, many of the devices cannot be effectively or cost-effectively connected to the cloud because there are too many of them, too small, and so on. And fog provides a way to help you connect all of them to the cloud. Today, for example, there are a lot of services that you find very hard to have only the cloud to support, to provide to the many devices. Because of the limitations of the network, because of the delays, because of many other limitations, fog gives you a channel, gives you a proxy that allows you to bring those services closer to the things so that you can actually provide those services to the things. And fog also is going to enable a wide range of new services that are not capable before in a cloud-only solution. So those, for example, include fog-based services. You are bringing computation and communication and storage services so much closer to the things, and that allows you to do a lot of things that cannot be done effectively before. One major category of those things that you can do is fog-based security services to actually help you address many of the tough security challenges in the Internet of Things, for example, that you cannot effectively address and with the current computing model. And there has been a large number of those challenges identified. People have been developing solutions to do that. And people know that in the Internet of Things, security is on the top of the mind of the industry. It comes to a point where a lot of people are scared to roll out new services because of the lack of security, meaning that security is no longer an add-on thing, it already become a roadblock. And fog can help you alleviate many of those limitations. So in addition to all of those, fog will disrupt the existing business models, and it's already doing that. So for example, all the leading companies in the ICT domain have been merging computing, networking, and storage. Today, if you want to put together an application or either in the cloud or on the premises of the customer, what you do is the following, right? You go to a company like Cisco to buy a bunch of networking gears to put up in a network. You go to another company like IBM or HP to buy a bunch of servers. right? And then you go to yet another company to buy a bunch of storage devices and networks. And then you go to yet another set of companies to buy a whole bunch of applications. Then you put together in a data center, and you put together an enterprise network. And that is already changing. All of those functions, computing functions, networking functions, storage functions, and applications are converging into the same system, same platform, which people call it a fog node or a fog system. And so that means, for example, if you look at all the major players, Cisco, for example, is turning its routers into a router plus and a server. HP, Dell are turning their servers into servers plus routers and switches. And so in the future, you will see a combined, unified hardware platform, and then software, and then a software enablement platform. All the other applications are going to be sort of running on this unified platforms. And that's already changing the landscape. And then there are other ways the landscape is already changing. We mentioned, for example, the fog is going to be a continuum between the cloud and things. That has an important implication. That means fog can be very scalable. It can be as small as a little node that you can put on your end device, like a robot, like in a car. It can be also as big as in a cloud, further away from your things. Because of that, you're going to see a combination of services provided by players big and small. So unlike clouds that are going to be operated by really, really big players, now you're going to see a combination. It's sort of a combination of cellular players and Wi-Fi players. And then there are more of them. So to stress that continuum again, if you look at what the customers need, the customers do not need separate services from the cloud, and then separate services from servers closer to it, and then separate services from your Wi-Fi channels, separate services from your cellular channels, separate services from your wired enterprise networks. They don't want that. They want the same service platforms to provide them services, and they want the services coming from different channels to be integratable. But unfortunately, today what people have been doing is to develop these isolated services and isolated systems. There are big groups that are developing mobile edge computing that basically targets mobile computing. There are groups that are trying to turn the central switches in a wired line network into yet another separate systems. There are groups there are people that are doing very, very similar functions, but in different ways for different systems. There are people who are developing the system for different verticals. And you heard Professor Meng Jiang mentioned that fog computing is very analogous to the TCP some years ago, providing you a way to distribute and a packet from A to B. What fog computing is trying to do is to provide you with a universal standard way to distribute computing and other services from A to B. And in addition to that, provide you with functions that can make use of those services and resources you distributed out. Meaning that is a common set of services and platform that you're going to need along any different underlying networks and for different industry verticals. In other words, we develop a TCP. We don't need a TCP IP for mobile, a TCP IP for wired, a TCP IP for connected cars, a TCP IP for automated, TCP IP for X and Y, Z. We need a TCP IP. And that's why the importance of that continuum of services between the cloud and the things in a common platform, in a common architecture vision, is going to change the way we provide services in the coming years. And it's going to disrupt the business in a very significant way. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Panasonic.